Hi, Shannon Lee.
Hello.
Welcome everyone. Welcome, Shannon. I
Yes.
guess welcome myself too.
Yes.
Welcome,
Welcome,
Sasha, as well.
Sasha. Good to see you again this week.
There you go. I couldn't wait for this one to go because it's very nice and topic that will be very interesting to chit chat about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think love is such a strong word and oftentimes used just in different contexts, and we maybe it's very difficult actually to talk about love, I guess. But we're gonna talk today about entanglement that can cause us to suffer, as well cause the suffering of ones we love, and all of that is done out from deep love that we kind of
Yeah.
want to engage in when it's a
Yeah. Well,
relationship with our dogs in question.
I think it's good to note, like you said, that there's different kinds of love, first of all. Like eros, romantic, family love. There's different kinds of love. And then we love ice cream. There's you're right. We use love like for everything. But then I think when you get into entanglement, we're talking about how when it can kind of pass a point and then become unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're touching on that tonight too, right? Even with our best intentions and how we love each other, love our family, love our friends, love our partners, sometimes we can love too much and it can be unhealthy.
It become a burden, right? It become
Yeah.
a burden for once we love. And
Mm-hmm.
especially that always good to bring in a context of the children, because we all experienced the childhood, right?
Right.
And
Right.
we all had memories of the childhood,
Yes.
and as well, I'm blessed enough to have my two kids, Sarah and Luca. They're my children, and it's very interesting to see when you would ask them probably about which kind of father I was. They would have all kind of opinions and all kind of labels to put on me. And if you would ask me which kind of intention I had when I was doing things that they kind of find very hard experiences to go through, I would
Mm-hmm.
find myself in the pure love in order to help my kids get prepared for the life. And I guess like everyone is finding himself in this parent-child relationship that can really translate to this parent, like a doggy parent, like a owners or the doggy parent's dog relationship,
Mm-hmm.
because the context is the same. The children and the dogs depend on the
Right.
on the parents and on the owners, and
Mm-hmm.
that the dependability is actually something that might cause a suffering in them because they don't have a choice. Little
Right.
children, they don't have a choice. The dogs don't have a choice. They just have a present moment, and to find the best possible way to cope with that moment. And as we
Mm-hmm.
said, when experiencing all kind of fear, and we never know what can cause the fear. For example, in our children, we read some fairy tale, and then in a fairy tale you have all kind of witches and all kind of, if you don't do this, then something bad happen, or if you do this, then and all kind of experiences when we kind of create this imagination in the mind of little kids. We never know which kind of consequences they're gonna end up bringing those imaginations into. And it's the same way with the dogs. But the difference in between children and dogs is that the dog is going to remain children forever, and they will never grow. No matter how old is your dog, is it a puppy or it's like 18 years old, 15 years old dog, dependability of the dogs remain as
The
an infant
same.
child and forever. And therefore
Okay.
they are able to get hurt a lot, where the children down the road, as we grow, we generation of ours, mine and yours, I guess, we went through all kind of drama and trauma and things like that. And on this level of our consciousness and lives, we try to find a way to cope with that through all kind
Right.
of
Yeah.
techniques and therapies and
Yeah.
whatever we go
Right.
through. But if you see the cause of all of that was in the environment when we really we were dependent on one that care about us, like our parents, and their imagination and their vision of how they should prepare their kids for the life.
Right.
But if you look in the intention, it was always guided by love, no matter how hard it hurt.
Why do you say that? Because I think that would be like, you'd say it's always guided by love. I mean,
but again, I said, like, even if, I know, for example, I know now, 50 years later, my father was very tough to me, both emotionally and physically. Mm-hmm. But now when my mother passed away like 2 years ago, I get the chance to know him a little more, because from my perspective, he never showed love to my mom the way I was thinking the love should be shown. Mm-hmm. But the moment when she passed away, I saw this vulnerable man, full in love, with a perception of how the love is to be expressed. And by seeing him at that point of vulnerability, I was able to picture him as my dad when I was like 2-3 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I see how much he loved me, and mm-hmm. everything I take for granted in our relationship was because he wanted best for myself. That hurt me a lot, right?
Right.
On the different levels, hurt me a lot. But intention was right. The intention was good. And that's where we come to a point that no matter which kind of intention is, every action has its consequences.
Yeah.
And every one of us should bear the fruit of his own actions. So when we say that, regardless of his good intention, it left big scars in me. Now we can discuss, are those scars healthy for me? So do I love the place of my life where I am? So I can thank him for everything he do in order to put me in the place where I am.
Right. Yeah.
That's a discussion, and that's a deep connection that children and parents share. But it's also important to understand when talking about pet parents and dogs, or doggy moms and doggy dads to their dogs, love has loving someone is a big obligation. Mm-hmm. And the loving someone takes a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we do pay price for doing something or not doing something out from our interpretation of how something should be handled. And then when we come down to road, the price is always to be paid. Our children become like what we didn't wanted, what we didn't anticipate it to become, in a good or bad way, whatever.
Right.
And our dogs as well. We want the best, we want the best for our dogs, and then we turn them into a killing machine, right? How that happened? How that happened? I love my child, and he turned into a serial killer. How that happened? Where is that click, or what's the click? Today it was in Serbia, like a mass shooting in a school. The child felt bullied, and now where is the responsibility? Like how did it happen? And everything happened somewhere. Somewhere was the beginning of that little path that opened and unfolded itself into a terrible disaster.
Yeah.
And in the beginning and in the root of everything of that is love.
Okay, wow, that's like a lot there. Because
I mean, the love of the parents to the kids. And then what happened?
Okay, maybe. I mean, I feel like there's still a lot to unpack there, because I know everybody, in theory, we say every parent does the best that they can do. But some would say too, like even with that, there's a spectrum of how that plays out with providing security, protection, love, abuse, like things like that can go all along, like in a home or, from parent to children. So I was just saying, like, I'm just thinking that's a kind of like a generalization to say everything is like purely in love. We hope so. You want it to be. But I do think there are some
But for
limitations for
example, again, as I said,
capacity.
no, no,
Not like everybody has a capacity to what their own experience was and what they're able to give forward to their children and the people in their life.
it shouldn't be excuse. So my father being bullied by his parents by not having the parents because his father was killed in the war.
Yeah,
So
I'm
he
not saying
didn't.
it should be excused. I'm just saying the way you said it at first, it sounded a little like everybody's in like coming from loving place. But I think a lot of people are coming from a hurt place, doing the best that they can to love the best they can. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily like the most uplifting, safe, and nurturing love, right? We do the best we can with our experiences, where we are in our journey of healing and those kinds of things. And with the idea that our parents did the best that they could, just like with our dogs, we're doing the best we could. And we have the responsibility to keep growing and keep evolving and keep healing ourselves so we can continue to love them as best as possible for their well-being.
Yeah,
So,
and you nailed it. You said kind of like a beautifully wrapped up the story that I did said in a way that it's our own world experience and consciousness and responsibility to
yeah,
do the best we can with the foundation that we got.
right.
And now we can keep remaining in this victimhood. I could, right,
Right.
remain because I have all the credentials to remain the victim of my father entire my life. But when that's end, when my responsibility for my own life starts, and here it's very important because it's my responsibility of my own. It's not only for my own, but for the children
Yeah,
I
for
have
everybody in your family.
and everyone else that I choose to care about when it
Right.
comes to dogs.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in taking personal responsibility for our lives. So no matter what you grew up in and what situations, I think it's important not to bypass it all. Like, you need to heal and you need to work through those things, but you need to do that so you can own your life and move forward and, go in the path of your purpose and your destiny and be able to love and be healthy and all the things, all the things that we get to be. Like, we free ourselves basically from all of that. And then I think you can have the understanding that your parents did the best they could with where they were at in their healing journey. Because if they didn't really understand their past and their healing, then they maybe weren't able to provide certain aspects of things for you. And then we inherit that generationally. It comes down. And then we get to heal it, though. Like, anytime we want to, we get to take responsibility and we get to heal and become more conscious. And that's really the beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's kind of that's a beautiful thing when you really want to be, inspiration to someone,
Yeah.
like to your kids, but in
Yes.
this context to our dogs. Like, that's very interesting thing when we talk about emotional entanglement. It's very easy to get emotionally entangled with dogs because
Yeah.
the dogs are there to serve people, and that's very important.
Yeah.
And today we have for the dogs purpose, service is of the most important character. That's where
Yeah.
they feel great. And then the problem becomes when they can serve us rather than taking care about us, because we don't take responsibility. Our doings are wrong in the perception of the pack mentality and the group dynamic. Our not doings are wrong in the perception of the group dynamic and the pack mentality. And that leads them with a great burden that they can't cope with. And then they turn into whatever the problem with the behavior.
That's the bad behavior. Yeah.
That's a bad behavior. And then we think that they're something. Oh, they are like doing this because he's stubborn, or he's jealous, or he eats my shoes because he wants me to go home or not go home or whatever. Like, come home or whatever. And we are misinterpreting entire line of communication that action brings with itself.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that again, when we talk in the episode, the rituals that help us learn how to interact with our dogs in this pack mentality, so we are not putting a burden on them, and they understand we're the leader. They understand we're the one protecting them, not the other way around. And there was one other, Sasha. What's the other one? I was like,
Provide, protect,
provide, protect, and I know.
Lead.
Lead. Yeah, that's like the most important one.
Lead, provide, protect.
So then when they know we're in charge, they don't have to take on that burden.
Yep.
And then when we're providing them the food, they don't feel the stress to have to go get and find and hunt. They know we're going to feed them, and then we're going to protect them. And with that, then we're honoring their communication and how they communicate in our family. So they're not stressed out and having to take on other roles and other burdens that can turn into behavior problems that look like behavior issues to us.
Yes, that's the most important. And so it's so actually easy, but again, requires love at the right place. Like, I need to be centered in my responsibility, and then to love responsibly, to do what I'm needed to be done, like to do what's my responsibility to be done. And then what arises from that is this beautiful relationship that I have with anyone. So, if I do too much or if I do too little, I'm not doing it good.
Right.
So responsibility is very important.
Responsibility.
It's very important part of loving someone and caring about someone, because
so it's making me think, because we talked about entanglement at the beginning. It's important to know like where we end and someone else begins in our relationships. And there's a lot of talk about codependency. So when there's too much dependency on your partner, or in this case on your dog, to fill needs for you, there's an imbalance and it gets unhealthy. And that's the entanglement. And you would say, like, in a human relationship, then that puts too much burden on both people, the way a codependent relationship would go.
And then one would because it's always, in those relationships, what's very important to understand, where actually this disbalance usually slips, is overdoing it. Overgiving is always burden on someone that can't return. And then I love you and I give you everything and I keep bombarding you, and that might feel good for a while. But at one point, out from the great love that I want to share, but I need to be responsible enough and to listen and to see how much you can take. If we continue our relationship in always being awake about that one of the important cosmic laws is giving and taking. That one can't take more than he's ready or she's ready to take, and more than capacity of taking is. And then my responsibility, if I love you, really love you, then I would observe and listen and look and search and understand where is the line.
Right.
Because at one point, overgiving is making the other person feel they just can't return, because they don't have qualities, they don't have resources, they don't have talents, they don't have, it's not a problem why they don't or can't. And whatever those resources and talents are, but they are always to be, we can work together so we can both be in place to take and give back. So
so like in a human relationship, you can find that kind of match with a person you choose, but with a dog, they're always in that they're dependent. So we have to be, just like with children, observant of what they can handle, what's too much, and we're responsible for that.
Yes, because it's much easier. You said like, oh, I lead. Yes, of course, I lead because I'm in charge. I buy food. I lead anyhow. I feed. I provide. I do all of these things, and they're like, the people are just not giving enough value to those things. For the dog, those are precious things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel that, oh my God, I just go in a pet shop and buy the food, or I just take him to a groomer, or I just cut his hair, or I take him to a walk, or things like that. Those things for us are normal. And then we don't value them as much as dogs do. And then we think that we need to give more, and we need to put perfume after grooming, and we need to groom them like to look like this and to do this and then we kind of overburden the dogs with our actions than actually leaders wouldn't do, because one important value of the leader is how you say that you don't do more than you need. You invest as much as you needed. You buy something that's, you add value to the giving and taking, because that's why you're a leader. You know what the others don't know.
Yeah. And then you give them the space. You give them the space to be who they are and grow. And
then you get that moment, then you get that, observation possibility to happen in between two of you. Because then the real leader, or I maybe, because I must tell you that by using word, can you find a charger, because it looks like it's not charging. So I don't want to stay with no battery. Thank you. So that's like, is there anything I can help you with?
Trusted producer.
Yeah, our little. Thank you so much for your doings. Yes,
thank
he's
you,
wonderful.
Vedran.
And then, so what did I say? I said like, what was the last time I said before I lost my batteries?
We were talking about the doing, like the leader, being a leader, or something about not calling it a leader, or when we call
yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Using the words like a pack. The pack would imply immediately alpha. Alpha implies immediately dominance. Dominance applies immediately wrongdoings of whoever was dominating us, wherever, in whichever stage of our life. When you add leadership, then you immediately associate that word with something that's outside of emotional, like a flow, something that doesn't belong there, like a word.
Yeah.
It triggers a lot of negative emotions. And oftentimes I have this, people coming back to us and you said like, you're putting such a nice words and such a nice, this human dog relationship. It's such a nice, frame. And yet you are using such a harsh word that looks like just don't belong there.
Leader?
Yeah, like leader and a pack and like even family. The question, because often, often we are triggered with the family as something that's, toxic and poisoned environment of too much masculinity and a lot of violence and things like that. So every single, that's so, how you say that, so interesting to observe how the people react on all of these things. And they're very important to understand, because you remember the show that we had.
Yeah, well, it doesn't for me, that's kind of surprising, because I think family is a kind of neutral term. I mean, you could be in what people might say a good family or a bad family, or a healthy family or not toxic family. But in and of itself, just family is, who your blood related to. I guess that's your relation.
Or extended or whatever. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But unfortunately, people sometimes got triggered with these terms and they think like it just doesn't belong here. And I think it, comparing children to the dog in our podcast is very slippery, place to go, like a slippery bridge to go through. It's because a lot of people think that actually that's completely wrong way to go. And I must say, I disagree, exactly because the people need to be met where they are. And like 99% of the people, when you talk to them and when you try to identify something or, try to identify the dogs with whatever they feel like, babies and children would come up as an immediate connection when you want to describe your little dog. And it becomes more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And it's and if we really want to bring back and find the lost language and reinvent the wheel, actually, kind of like, we need to find the people at the place where they are.
Yeah, I mean, you will even have some people who don't have biological children and they choose to have, they say, well, I have 2 dogs. Those are my children. I mean, I heard people say that a lot. And then when families with children lose their dog, right, or have to put them down, I mean, I have never heard anybody not reference them as feeling like they lost a family member.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bonds are so strong that it's not to say they're just like, I mean, like everything's the same, but it's a pretty close relationship in terms of the dependence and not being able to communicate when the children are little. So I think that's where it's a reference that does help it make it easy to understand when we're saying it's important to learn how a dog communicates and what their ancestral wiring is for being part of a pack, part of a family, part of a group, because it just helps us know how to connect with them better and how to, like you said, lead and in healthy ways provide and protect for them, because we know what their needs are. It's what their needs are. It's knowing what their needs are.
And they're, providing that fundamental need for an animal. Yeah. They're where the overgiving is happening when the animal-human relationship is in place.
Yeah.
They don't want more than needed, because giving more than needed is irresponsible leadership. In the corporate world would be leaders that spend more than it's needed. It's not a wise leader. If you invest wrongly, it's not a wise decision.
Right.
And here you have a chance to practice it in its perfectness. How to love without killing the ones you love. How to love without overdoing it.
Yeah.
And then by learning all of that, you can, or no, you, like me too, and everyone else in this picture can learn about where is the line.
Right. I think that's important, because I think we're always learning that in our own relationships too. So it makes sense. We need to learn that with our dogs also. Where do I end? Where do you begin? What's my responsibility for me? What's your responsibility for you? And that's how we have this harmony between, the dance between 2 people, the dance within our family. Like, how do we all contribute to what we are as a family? Yeah.
That's great. Like where I end and where do you begin? Mm-hmm. And then what is my I-ness and your I-ness? And then what is us?
It's the we, yeah.
Right, what is we?
Yeah.
And that's exactly, that the cosmic law, this is not something that you can, that we can kind of overturn just because we are humans, and we can try, and we pay a big price for that, because the world we know and the planet we have, it's collapsing in front of our eyes. And for all of that's happening, the only one species is guilty, and that's us. Right? Mm-hmm. Because we thought that in our power, there is no limits, and there is everything can be bought and everything can belong, and I can have everything I want and things like that. But there are the certain limits, not because someone set those limits for you personally. Those are laws of cosmos that can't be moved around, exactly as same as the law of gravity exists. Yeah. The law of giving and receiving, or actually more likely giving and taking, because the taking is an action. Receiving is very passive way of waiting something for me to happen. And then the receiving mode is easy. The receiving, that's very important. The law is not called law of giving and receiving. In a family,
I thought it is, though. It's not, because there's a law of reciprocity, like
giving and taking both need to be an action.
Taking feels different, at least in English. Taking sounds like aggressive, like I'm going to take without your permission.
That's the
Where
problem. The problem in the people not being able to take what's theirs. That starts with the relationship with their parents. And that's where we need to learn that law. And that's very important. We are back to ground one. And where do I learn to love myself is to love who I am. How do I love who I am? I love myself from where I come. Where do I get this life from? And who is the ground zero beginning of this is my parents, whoever they were, and whatever they did as a persons, they are a source of my divine power to do with this life whatever I want. The problem, and that's the only place, and that's what's the power of the love is. That's the only place where the children can never repay their parents for the power of the life and the love that they got. That's a present. And that's why oftentimes, what can I give back in return for life?
Honor, appreciation.
That's all, again, that's if you want to put that on a scale, that honor and appreciation would be enough to value the power of life, the possibility of living and experiencing the life.
But they chose to give us life. I mean, so that's again where they chose to give us life, and in return we thank them and have gratitude and honor and appreciation for their choice to bring us into this world.
That's the question. Again, there is a big question when you say like they chose to give us life. Then kind of like that's debatable, and it's
consciously or not, they allowed life to come through them.
We need to, if debatable on which level, not a conscious way, but on a spiritual realm. Mm-hmm. Who, if we put a spiritual realm and we have that belief, whatever we believe in, and do we believe in a spiritual world? And if we do believe in a spiritual world that doesn't exist indeed, actually it's a beginning of this material world, but then what was the contract of the spiritual relationship that we had with our parents before we got born?
That's what I meant. That's what I meant by conscious or unconscious. Like there's a contract already there if you believe that. So they were part of that willingness for us to come in through them.
But they are exactly, that's the question. Who chooses who? Do the parents choose the soul and the spirit of the child to go through them? Or the child chooses them? And then if the child spirit chooses the parents, then where is to blame? Where the blame come from? Because our consciousness and we
weren't talking about blame though. You were talking about the power of being a parent and how that then you can never repay that. And I was saying you can repay that with honor and appreciation and respect and things like that. That would be the reciprocity of.
Actually what is the only way to move that power around? That is where we, because what does it mean? Feeling all of those things, and how do I show to my parents appreciation and respect, and which the honoring and all kind of those things? How do I show to my parents that I'm actually honoring the life that I got from them as a present? The only one way to do that is to live the life in its fullness, and then to be creative and do with life whatever, as you said, that was a very nice, we went through that in the middle of this chat, was when you said like, you have a power to decide what you're going to do today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then today will bring a more nice tomorrow, or it won't. And that's simply as that. So our life can really, all of the self-help things and all of these spiritual advisors and everything, whatever was, it doesn't count anymore. You have a power over your life now, today, here. And then see what you need. Do you need more courage? Do you need more? And then if you need more courage to move away from the toxic relationship, from abuser to this kind of like, how do I create my life when I'm on the down with everything. So
Yeah.
maybe I can't at that point, but I need to start working it up, building it up. So where do I find my power? Where do I find my strength? Where do I find this? What is my resource? How do I become strong enough to run away from here, to do this, to do that? And that's again coming back to my will and choice to strengthen myself and try to find the light of life within. Again, everything comes from within.
Yes. But, and we got on this thread though, because we're talking about power and reciprocity and give and take versus give and receive.
Give and receive. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important because again, at least with the English language, take sounds like against your will. I'm going to take something from you. Versus you get to give me something, I get to receive it.
Yeah, but then you depend. If you that's kind of if you I'm pretty.
But help me, Sammy. What would I take from you in my relationship? What do I take?
For example, in order to learn for example, that's exactly where the burden starts. From the moment that I'm giving you things you can't take anymore.
Okay, but I think,
for example,
I'm trying to work out because I think there's a little bit of semantics here, so I'm trying to understand what you mean by take.
Try to put it. Okay, let's come back to the point of where actually this is to be practiced the most, and where do we fail to kind of integrate this word meaning into real action, because we are talking today about the love.
Yeah.
Children, and that's kind of very big premise of the family constellation work. And it's not something that it's a theory. It's always seen in the family constellation workshop. When someone is working on some topic issue or a theme that, symptom that bothers present moment of the life, outcome oftentimes ends and is put myself in those shoes. So oftentimes, for example, I would feel unloved, right? That's common feeling. No one loves me. No one understands me. My partner doesn't love me. My kids doesn't love me. My coworker, no one loves me. I feel alone. That's inner feeling that comes from the basic need of child to be loved by its parents. And I just never worked around to understand that it's my duty and responsibility to drink from the source of life, from the spring of that life, from my parents, regardless who my parents are. Because you said that that's a spiritual contract. So it is a spiritual contract. So we need to assign divine power to the love.
Yeah,
that flows, just a second, that flows through our parents as a people persons. And people persons are always entangled with their own family drama, things like that. Whatever is there happened to them, caused them to be who they are.
Yeah.
And now if I see my father as he is, without being able to transcend him as a person, to access the divinity that made me, Sasha, baby, that I can eat and drink from the spring of life that flows through my parents. That's the only place on this earth that the children can take and need to take love. And there is no other place and no one in the world can love you as the divine power of that flows through your parents. And that's only source of our life. We don't have two. We might have a lot of people that helped us become who we are, our teacher, maybe adopted family or whatever. There are a lot of people that are engaged in our growth and becoming of who we are, maybe just even a survival, right? To survive enough to keep living. But there's only one source of love. That's a source of life. And there is a responsibility. It can be received, need to be taken. And that's the problem. That's exactly, if receiving is very big, it's very, how can I say, receiving?
I say accept, maybe accept is a different word. Because again, take is just a different connotation.
So, no, I get, but it requires action and responsibility.
Yeah, so does acceptance.
What?
acceptance, like to receive.
No, again, you need to open yourself, and you depend on someone else. You depend that you receive or accept something that's given to you by someone and someone else's will and choice to give.
Yeah. Yes.
But that's exactly where the drama of the relationship starts. If I expect from you to give me something that I wait to receive, and then you don't give me what I expected from you.
I don't understand then, because I don't understand how you take love.
Exactly.
I don't understand how you like take love from somebody.
It's
like,
not from somebody. There you go. That's
that's exactly what I was trying to get to, because the way that it's phrased sounds like the give and the take are from the people. And that's why I was trying to communicate that when you say it like that, take, I was just trying to understand
for example,
the semantics behind the word to make sure we're saying the same thing, or the meaning is the same, because take sounds like
action.
Action that I'm taking. And I had a boyfriend that said, there's two people in the world, Shannon, there's givers and takers, and like you're the giver and I'm the taker, and like that's a good alignment. I'm sorry, I think that's still funny. But so I'm joking, but I'm not. That just to clarify that this is not about actually taking, because you can't take love from someone.
Because the kind of like that's the connotation of the love and action. To have it is to take it. And as much as we want to confront this action,
to have it is to take it.
Yeah. Because if I love you and you don't know how to take it, it's not my responsibility. If you wait,
we would say receive. Like we would say like
no. Like, who is we?
I'm just saying English-wise, like you take it, you don't, like somebody has to give it in order to take it. Like you can't like.
Yeah. But that's exactly what I'm talking. It's given.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
No, but wait, it's given.
How do you take it? You don't take it. It has to be given, and then you have the choice to receive it or not. Some people have the capacity to receive it. Some people do not.
It's very important to understand that, again, like come back to taking and receiving. Taking is my action, and I'm responsible for it. Receiving depend on someone else. Are you giving me so I can receive?
Okay. I just might not understand. I don't understand how to take love. Like I know how to receive love if someone is loving and kind.
Exactly. That's
and
exactly
do that, but I don't know how to just take it anyway when someone's there and they're not offering something loving.
Okay.
Like how do you take love?
How do you practice this? What exactly I'm talking about, and that's exactly where you need to put your parents in front of you.
Well, no. I know how to honor, and I know they love me, and I can do divine source and God and all of those things. But I maybe I just have a mental block of an understanding of the physicality of taking something if it's not something somebody's giving. So like if someone has cake, someone has cake, but they're not going to give it to me. I could go reach it and take the cake, but that's aggressive, and like they're not giving it to me. They have it. I went and like stole it from them. I'm going to take it against their will. So it's different in my mind, and so I'm probably totally not understanding what you're trying to say.
No,
but to me, there's a physicality. There's a physicality to taking.
Let me take you to the place where you might be able to visualize how you are taking something that's so abstract like love, because the river of life. Can you imagine? Can you imagine river of life flowing forward from our parents forward, and that's the only way the river can flow forward, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in order for me to kind of allow myself for that power of love and power of life to flow through me, right? I need to allow that love to exist.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I would think that I need to receive something, for example, instead of take what's mine. For the health and both spiritual and the physical awakening of every one of us can be practiced only in front of the parents.
Yeah.
Because that's the only one, as I said, and you said to me a couple of things that you might be able to return for the gift of life that we have received from our parents.
Yeah.
And then try to balance that power. But power is so powerful that the only way to balance it is to give it forward by having children, or to create something in a creation way, like you are creative, like a scientist or an artist or something, you create something with existence, and then that takes place of creativity of the new life, like children are. And that power of more than I am gets released into the river of life. But how do we practice taking our life, and how do we know did we take a love from our parents? Is through our relationships. Which kind of relationship we are in, or do we have a relationship? The ones you practice, and then do you get a chance to practice your relationship loving each other in this everyday understanding, where is the line? How much someone can take and how much I'm willing to give, how much I have to give. And again, like easiest way to practice that, again, comes back to dogs. But let's get back to this term of taking. Again, receiving depends on someone will to give. I'm giving you a cake, and you can receive it if you want, right? If you decide that your parents, not decide, if you consent, kind of like, I do consent with full my being that the beginning of my life flows through divine power of my parents. And if I don't learn to take what's mine, and there is a first thing of this taking, giving relationship practice. What is mine in a relationship with my parents? From my father, I should take love, but not his responsibility for being to me the father that put his child through everything that emotionally and physically I experience by living next to him. And if I take a burden of paying his price, because the children would do that exactly as the dog will. Why? Because the parents to the little child, especially to the infants or those children until like 6 or 5 years old in that period, are the goddess, because they are a source of their life. And the infant and the little babies are very aware of that. As more we grow, far away we get from that perspective of our parents, because slowly we learn that they are not gods, they are humans.
Right.
And the humans have all kind of drama going in their life. And then I learned that my father is not the goddess, but he's kind of, and how, because when the little child is looking in the eyes of his father, he sees the God. Same with the mother. I'm talking about the little babies.
Yeah.
Infants, completely dependent on them. And in their little heart and mind, this is the best the life could ever give me and get me. And then slowly, as we grow, we forgot those things. And then the idea of taking and receiving is on our end to forget about their price, not to save our parents by being angry at them, because every single time when we are angry at our parents, we forget our divine life. We are angry at ourselves.
That's more like not taking on a burden.
That's not taking a burden, taking a love, because it's a choice. It's a subconscious choice. And as much as I don't want to be like my father, and you get to my kids and you ask them, which kind of father is Sasha? He would tell you as your father, exactly as my father. He oftentimes tells me how much I reminded him of my father. And everything I wanted to be in my life was just not to be like my father. What I end up being? Just like my father. How? By not wanting to be. Why? Because I took his burden on myself with blaming him for everything I went through. That's not mine. That's me connecting to his by choice.
Yes.
To his, how you call that? human side,
Right. Yeah.
fragile side, not to divine power that flows through him. And that's my choice, subconscious, but it's still a choice. No one mad, no one kind, and that hurts a lot down the road by the choice, especially when the relationship with the father is. How do you know that there is something going on with the relationship with father, or something is still to be healed on, to work on? There is no distinctive line in between job and purpose. Am I doing my job, or I'm on my calling? Am I responding to my calling? Because the calling is something that shines my path through the world and light and everything of that. So the calling and the life purpose is solely connected to the relationship of the father.
Yeah. So
and the money, just a second, the money, the relationship with the money as an outcome of the purpose is a solely relationship with the mother. Entangling on those two is me doing the job I'm born to do by fulfilling my purpose and having money that comes as an outcome of that. So that's kind of where entanglement starts. And again, what I'm gonna take, love or the blame, it's on me, because I'm doing it. And I must say that I did so much.
Yeah, this feels very different. So that helps me know when you just said that. To me, it's still a choice, but to take the love or the blame, that's different than what I was hearing when you were talking about how you take things. So that makes sense. Like the way you just phrased it there, that makes sense to me. Because otherwise, like, how do you take something?
That's why I actually love having this podcast with you. Otherwise, I might be able, someone else watching us might be, what this whole has to do with the dogs, and why my parents are here, why this giving and taking is there, and but having you here, you don't let me go until there is no clarity in that. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
But I want to say this, and for anyone else listening who might have been with me on the like, how do you understand this? Because receiving, I get now where you were coming from with the take, because your family constellation, like if your parents love you, they brought you into the world, they love, so you can choose to take that, or you can choose to take on the burden and the family drama and trauma and all of those things. So that's more what you meant when you said take. Like, it's like taking something on.
But that's exactly when you put that in a context of the relationship with your spouse or with your partner. It's again, oh my God, I hate him, I can't see him, I or I loved him.
Right.
I really loved him, and then separate as oftentimes we have those rituals and things like that. So we take what's ours, as we talked about this, like what do you take from the toxic relationship?
No, I get it now.
Relationship.
I get what you're saying.
What's yours?
Now.
Right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's very, very important.
Just a different context of the way to use the word take normally. So that was the needed extra clarification. Clarity. Got it. And so like now if we wrap this up with dogs.
Yes.
It's like if we, because I mean, I feel like this topic, we could have part 2 on this topic, but for the sake of today, we should probably wrap this up. But like for dogs, then we have to be careful of what they can take.
Yes. Yeah. And they will take. Yeah. They will take everything excessively, and that will hurt them as so far, because you see,
they'll take on the burden. They'll take the burden from us.
They'll take a burden. They'll take a burden to
just
save
like we do
us.
as kids. Whoops, sorry. Yes. Like as kids. Yeah.
They will take a burden to save us, because they want to do everything for their masters. Mm-hmm. And how we have this strange, in a family constellation, again, I'll bring a family constellation. That's where the order of harmony brings. Everything need to be in order.
Yes, I remember doing that though, and because you get an opportunity with family constellation to get that clarity, and then to give back what's not yours to take.
What's not yours.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where, when the scientific research shows, and you can, go to any vet and ask him for his, notes. And I know a lot of dogs around, by my friends and my dogs, things like that. Oftentimes you will see like 60% of the dogs today get diagnosed with some sort of a cancer. down the road. It's a kind of high end, disease that the dogs suffer from.
Right.
Do you know which organ will actually never suffer the cancer in the body?
No, I don't know that.
The heart.
Oh, right.
Why the heart? Because heart is always living its purpose. The love is, the moment the heart stops living the purpose why it exists, that moment life stops.
Yeah.
So there is no way for heart not to live its purpose.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the emotional blockages and all other portions of the body can hold much more and finally explode when they don't live the purpose.
Right.
For example, liver with the anger and all kind of those kind of things. So when the organism itself doesn't live a purpose, when we doesn't live a purpose, the impulse of let's start again creates this drama in the certain place. And then actually what once started the life, that's the same way how the cancer explodes and take over the body. It's progress by splitting the cells without control. And then it becomes very dangerous. So living the purpose is very of importance. Yeah. Next to humans, the modern life dogs unfortunately doesn't get a chance to live their purpose. Not because they are not herding or sheeping or doing this or doing that, but they are overloaded with the stress and baggage that they took away from their owners. So the dogs oftentimes are in this, sacrificing themselves out from the huge love that they have for their owners. And that's why, because we overload them with unnecessary doings. We don't know when to stop. And those, like little kids, they don't know how to say no.
Right.
They'll take it, and that's actually what leads to decomposition of the energetical body, and kind of leads to this. And oftentimes in order of harmony, oftentimes and in family constellation, wherever you want to go, direction, fulfilling the purpose of one. It's always, everything goes smoothly. Everything goes like divine plan, and everything is on its going. The dogs, when overloaded, they don't know how to respond to that rather than shutting off. And again, we have a fear. We have all kind of body reaction of that, becomes a hormonal problem. The cortisol shuts off the immune system. The next thing you know, entire body collapses. And out from big love that they do for us, they kind of by taking that burden, they save us on one level, but on the other level, they prevent us as well. That entanglements prevent us from searching the answers and looking for the solutions on the other places, because we feel like everything is okay, where actually nothing is okay.
It's not okay.
It's just a mask, it's a facade, and it's gonna collapse sooner or later. The later it collapses, the bigger the price is to be paid.
Right. Oof. I really feel like we should put a pin in that for the next week, because I think it would be really good to explore what that looks like, and how we unintentionally overburden our dogs and what things they take on and what that can look like. So people who are wanting to be aware of this, maybe we could give them some tangible things of what that ends up looking like and how our dogs take that on, and then how it affects their well-being, and then how we can correct that too, and become more conscious of the dynamic, that because we don't want them to do that, but we have to learn how we're doing it first, and how it's a mask, and what they're representing in our life, and what it might be keeping from us, all the things. Could we do that next week?
I must say, and that might be a closing as well, it's kind of like a big calling on you, because I think that in this world, there is no one more eligible to testify to that.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate whenever you are ready for that story. And if came to be next week, I'm more than happy, to dive into that, because it's healing on a lot of levels. It's healing it's healing by, because that's what's the very important healing process is, bringing the truth on the surface, and then the truth on its own becomes healing power that
Yeah.
we
Well,
get
I
ourselves
certainly
through.
know. I see my story in hindsight. I understand it better for sure. But I also think there's just things we can, and I can share my experience, but also just in general, some of the things we do as humans that end up burdening our dogs that we love so dearly with the best intentions.
Yes.
You
And
know.
I think, like, kind of like, yeah, this was a hard episode, I guess, but it's also very important to understand that, power of love is so big that can also be as much as a driving force for a good outcome. It can, out from the best will and wants, turn into a biggest poison on the ones that we love, out of burden again, because they are taking the burden and it just poisoning them. And then the intention was good, but the outcome was a disaster. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just taking it in. So,
Okay.
okay. Well, thanks. That was just very insightful as usual. Very good.
And thank you so much for bringing, holding me on, Pat, because it was oftentimes, I talk and that's so normal for me. And these, words that I use sometimes, it would be like, oh, I might use a nicer word, or it's easier to cope with the word. But, with this taking and receiving thing, I want to really acknowledge your strength and the resource you bring to this conversation by advocating for the our listeners and viewers to kind of like keep me on the path of clarity that I'm very much aware sometime out from my wanting to share too much and to talk about, I just get lost.
Yeah,
So thank
no,
you so much
yeah, of
for
course,
doing that.
because you have so much knowledge. I'm just wanting to make sure we understand it,
There you go.
So
Perfect match.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
with that said,
wonderful.
Shannon and
Yes.
Lee, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Sasha.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
watching
you.
us. And then see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.